Hey everyone, I'm Anton. I work at Twitter and we use Graal native image in our project. And right now we distribute our binaries to hundreds of engineers across the company and they love it. And today I want to share our story about how we try to still on JVM, but continue using JVM by providing good performance for our command line tools, what is powering our engineers. And today I would like to talk why it's matter to us, what we tried before we switched fully on Graal, and what does Graal give us with whole technology, what's available. So yeah, why does it matter for us? Why startup time is important for our use case? I'm basically working on what's called Strato internally, and in few words, it's basically platform as a service what's help increase velocity and development across the company and remove a lot of headache from our engineers to maintain services at Twitter. And to do this, we have created many years ago our custom query language. What this looks like very similar to Scala, but has more restriction and give us more ability to reason about this language, do a lot of optimizations, and we can provide to our customers more richer environment. And StratoQL basically has compiler toolchain as you expect it as any language. And we provide also IDE support for our customers. Basically same experience what you have for Scala in IntelliJ. During the years of this project internally, we right now have 90,000 lines of code in StratoQL. So some people use it. And we deploy and deliver to hundreds of engineers to use it every day. So unfortunately, before I joined this project, no compiler was running around minute. So that was completely unacceptable for our customers because it just was a matter of distraction. Every time you try to run something, every time you try to compile something, it took a while and almost impossible to have rapid interactive development cycle. And one of the downside of standard or long-running command line tools, you cannot integrate it with build system, just because of if you try to compile 90,000 code of line and every run took you 1 minute just to set up everything, and it's just slow down a whole company, and it will be disaster for all CI system. So unfortunately, with this, we come to conclusion that we need to optimize and see how we can stay on JVM platform and still be able to provide some useful, fast command line tools to our customers. And we did try a couple of things before we eventually end up with Graal. First standard way, it's try to optimize JVM start time by various flags, various combinations. And even Oracle and Java community try to address this problem with features like class data sharing. And we was able to optimize it. That's just start of our application with no operations and JVM took around 5 seconds for start time. It was a definitely win, but still, by any measurement, it was a distraction to our customers, because if your tool runs more than 1 second, people usually distracted and lose focus on what they do. And actually, NOP compiler was looking fine, but average compiler's run was still around 1 minute, because whole application still need to warm up, still to do a lot of things inside and so on. And we still was not able to integrate with it with build system to increase integrity of our compilation and our configurations in source repository. So JVM bias something, but still was not acceptable to move forward with this approach. And we come to Nailgun. Nailgun is useful project, helps a lot, and Nailgun can give you instant run, second run. First run usually takes the same time as JVM run, but with how Nailgun is created and how it was implemented, it's basically keeps your jar on existing process, and you just communicate with this process and can rerun it. And it is constant bronze. Average compiler's run was 5 seconds, what was good. One of the downside of Nailgun that it's almost not supported. The last release was 2018. That probably means that this project is dead. And another problems was that Nailgun is stateful, because it's cache or everything in one process, and it's create whole lot of problems with stateful applications. If your application not was created for stateful, if it was created with notion that you running in different environment, you will have a lot of troubles. And it's hard to troubleshoot, especially because you use Nailgun on customers' laptops, on engineers, and you don't have access to that. You cannot connect usually to, because we work right now in different strange remote environment. You cannot come to person and help them to troubleshoot what's problem is. And is there sometimes our engineers just spread across the globe, and Nailgun doesn't have any tool to introspection to understand what is state inside Nailgun, what is go wrong, what's cached, what's not, and it's create a lot of mystery behavior for customers. So it definitely was improvement to our tool chain. It definitely was improvement for our customers, but it's create a long tail of problems and customer support, what we create a burden for our team, because we not even ours can understand what goes wrong, and we don't have any good solution to solve these problems, because it's hard to understand root cause. We also tried at some point, that was long time ago, that was tried native image. It was a RC version or even before RC version. And at that time, Graal native image was not a lot of help to with common problems like reflection. And that time you did need to manually annotate and understand what's reflection invocation was in your application and how to put them in right in your configuration to Graal native image. And also a lot of dependencies what we had was not ready anyhow, and you basically need to instrument them as well. We spent some time to trying to compile our application, but unfortunately, eventually we gave up and switched it, decided to stay on with Nailgun, because it was not very successful and pleasant experience at that time with native image. Do we have Any question at this point so far? Sounds good. So what we have right now and what we think is very good to suit us. Once we last time tried, it was a year ago, usually probably, we switched it fully on Graal native image. It was a version 20.1, and Graal, it's right now is awesome. Actually, it gives us instant startup time. Our no-op compiler right now runs less than millisecond. P50 compiler runs less than 1 second, what is super great for customers. P90 around 10 seconds tail compilation for big config or folders of configs. Right now took some time, but we still can have a lot of room to improvement even this behavior. And what is awesome about this, when you have instant runtime, you basically can add more and more feature to your customers. Right now, you have plenty of room what you can do in your latency budget, and it's create a lot of opportunity to improvement existing tools and what we provide to our customers. We still, while we try to use Graal, reflection is still a pain, but with agent tracing, that's basically not a problem at this point. It's time to time, it's creates some misconfiguration, but it's not a big problem and big headache. I think that's what Graal teams did it with agent tracing is very awesome. It's awesome technology. I think it's how it was from first place, and it works as expected. It's also because we use Scala a lot, and our reflection was on Scala reflection, actually not Java reflection. And we was able to migrate most of heavy reflection code on macros, just because Scala macros in version 2 has similar API with reflection API. And it's even give us reason to improve our runtime characteristic and performance characteristic by leveraging compilation time instead of runtime. And dependencies actually ready. A lot of dependencies what we use like Nati, like Finagle, and other dependencies already have some configuration for Graal. Most of time, it's only problems. It's to figure out what is need to be initialized at build time versus runtime. And time to time, we need to figure out this, but usually it's like 10, 15 minutes to spend on this. And if new dependencies come to your class path, you just need to be careful and say what is initialization time for Graal native image. Most disadvantage at this point for us, at least, is not support of cross compilations. And it means that because our engineers using macOS and Apple architecture, we need to compile specifically on macOS hosts. And because CI is usually not configured for having macOS hosts, we do it from our laptops before we releasing each time new version of our compiler. That's create a lot of friction and sometimes configuration drift because if we release something on server side, we can't forget about releasing our compilation tools. But that's price what we willing to pay because Graal currently provide to us very robust and reliable infrastructure. We wish that this problem will be solved at some point, or we will solve it by investing in CI. I think I'm basically done with my presentation. Thank you so much for listening to this, and I would love to answer any questions if you have so far.
Okay, so I have a question. You said that most dependencies already have a Graal configuration. How is that happening? I'm not aware of that. People are just creating it because they need it on demand.
Yeah, I think in one of the big driver right now, at least what I see in community, one of the big driver right now, it's JVM Java community and actually Spring, and this new way to create application like Lambda architecture, and they care most about start time. Actually, looks like nobody cares about command line tools, but everybody cares about server start time. And for them, they try to heavily go through all their dependencies and make them ready to be useful in AWS Lambda by leveraging Graal native image. So Spring Boot and Micronaut invest heavily on their dependencies, and they use like common dependencies, fundamental dependencies in JVM infrastructure like native and others. So that is kind of how this spread happens across the community. And Scala community, I think right now also start migrating, and because SBT start using native image and leveraging this, and others also try to invest in make it fundamental core libraries ready to Graal native image. I think it will be more and more in coming years. That's when community will understand that this kind of tools will be created new opportunities to using JVM languages and create new kind of application what was basically impossible or not that useful to create in prior art.
And for instance, like if I have a dependency and I start having issues because of like missing reflection configuration, how do you do to find out if like there's a configuration somewhere for that? Is that like a mechanism for that?
If you have usually most of problems right now, at least what we encounter is not with reflection. Agent tracing is awesome, and it's covering most of the use cases what you have. You basically create load profile, and while you preparing your configuration for Graal native image and try to exercise all branches in your applications, and it can capture it 99% of reflection even with dependencies and so on. Most of the problem with dependencies when they try to initialize something like static objects, what is tried to use environment on doing some magic with bytecode translation or something like that. And at that time, you need to create special config in your packaging or going to this particular dependency and update their configuration. And most of this configuration is about initialization on build time or versus runtime. And if you can figure out and separate pieces, different pieces, and can put it in right category, then you're fine. Because if you're using framework like native, most of the problem with native that native try to heavily initialize everything up front before application will start it at beginning of applications. And if you how Graal native image working, it's basically also run your application, try to do it ahead of time compilation. And if you initialize some resources during the build time, it can create a problem, and because Graal doesn't like this. And basic approach at see what is Graal report to you. Graal also has very useful flags to indicate what is goes wrong and give you useful error messages. And by this combination, these tools what Graal provide to you, you can usually identify what is root cause and go and create configuration saying like, instead of build time, please initialize this and runtime for this initialization later or something like that. So we are using this over the year, I think so, and we didn't encounter impossible problem. All of the problem was exist, we was able to work around on our end without breaking any dependencies or something like that.
Great. So we have a question from the chat. Mikhail, do you want to unmute and ask, or I can read it? Maybe I can read it. So the question is, what do customers use native compiled the native compiled compiler for? What's the use case of the
basically
the Strato compiler?
Yeah, our Strato compiler, it's part of our tool chain, what we distribute to our customers. And when they write a code, it's like our Java C or Scala C. And by this, they can type check because our QL code is strictly typed language, has a different pipeline like parsing, compilation, type checking, compilation, optimization part, and so on. And because it is language what has dependencies like imports, includes, and something like that. And we need to have a external world for this for one particular, to compile one particular config. And because we distributed and we right now was able to integrate it with build systems and Twitter, we use PaaS to compile everything. And right now, basically, our PaaS can compile our language, and this binary is part of distribution of PaaS, and we can use and be able to instantly run during the compilation of all source repository as part of build process. So it's useful for them to check that they have correct StratoQL code. It's useful to compile and generate a lot of after generated code back to JVM based on your configuration file.
Great, thank you for the answer. And we have another question from the chat. Do you want to unmute and ask the question, Mikhail?
Hello, this is Mikhail. If I remember correctly, Strato is directly facing end users, and therefore you may be seeing attacks against Strato and maybe targeting the Graal VM. So I just wanted to understand if you're seeing any specific attacks happening against Graal VM, or how do you consider the Graal VM security at the moment? What is the status of it?
I think for us, because Strato is not, we don't like this whole effort was only at client side, and our client is engineer who work employee of Twitter, and we actually didn't think about this at all. on this particular work on Graal native image, using Graal native image. Another question, what is Strato server and what is server side and backend? It's more, we have a Twitter VM team and they run for us, they configure for us packaging of GVM, what is include Graal JIT compiler. And I think it is more question for them, how they address security issues and possible vulnerabilities. I'm just not expert in this field to answer your question correctly.
Yes, I'm part of the VM team. We haven't noticed any attacks directly related to Graal, but that's a good question. I imagine in the future we are going to see that. Most of our large services, biggest workloads run on our JDK distribution that has Graal as a just-time compiler, not native image, but like Graal within the JVM as a just-time compiler.